Historians have disagreed when the African American culture movement known as the Harlem Renaissance began and when it ended. Scholars do agree that the Harlem Renaissance was the first time African literature, art, and music crossed racial lines and was accepted by large numbers of white American society. New York was the place for a great migration of Black Americans leaving the rural South because of several factors, including factories were in an economic depression in the South, along with the destruction of cotton crops. After the Civil War, the rights and civil liberties of the free slaves were under continuous assault, that they looked to the North as a symbol of change, and Harlem was a place of hope in a difficult time. To serve the growing African American population, black churches, barbershops, along with bars were built. Several civil rights organizations moved in the area, along with political activists, and then cabaret entertainers soon followed. Co-founder of the NAACP civil rights activist and author W.E.B. Du Bois saw an opportunity to foster part of the Negro movement, which was an interracial cooperation and understanding through the media of literature, visual arts, music, theater, and dance. Enormous artistic productivity out of this area brought forth novels, essays, short stories, also volumes of poetry, Broadway plays, in addition to several ballads and concertos and large numbers of paintings and sculptures. People like Alan Locke and Walter White capitalized on white interest in black culture to gain attention for African American social and political concerns. Alan Locke, in addition to being a writer, was also a mentor and activist for young college students. James Weldon Johnson went beyond writing by having connections with white philanthropists to support the NAACP journal, The Crisis. In turn, this would pay for new writers. Walter White knew prestigious publishers, mentored others, and helped in having their works published. Claude McKay became the first black national bestseller for his book, Home to Harlem. The unknown writer's works included American folklore, superstition, black slang, and everyday life. Also included in the visual arts, portrayals of Harlem ghetto life, the poor and working class blacks, criminals, prostitutes, and drug addicts became the subject for vibrant and distinctive works. Visual artist Aaron Douglas used iconography in his work expressed through dance and everyday life, while Meta Warrick interpreted African folk tales in her sculptures. Palmer Hayden showed black folklore from the South through his paintings, and Langston Hughes was a poet who was awarded for his work from scenes such as physical and sexual images, alcoholism, lives of the poor, and black folk and blues music, and other lurid elements. Social and literary movements gained momentum for black artists and entertainers, which then became known as Harlem Mania. Music flourished at this time, which jazz influenced slang and fashion through the 1930s and 1940s. At the end of the 19th century, jazz used to be ragtime, which grew out of the musical hothouse that was New Orleans. Jazz represents a creative musical side that is a blend of several styles: French, Spanish, African, and Caribbean cultures of work songs, spirituals, blues, Mardi Gras marches, and European military music. Jazz also reflects the wide-ranging emotions of the musicians and the diversity of the music scene in the U.S. The musicians of this time were Ella Fitzgerald, the First Lady of Song, and Billie Holiday was known as Lady Day, was living icons of independent, free-thinking women. Male musicians such as Louis Armstrong could hit the high notes on his trumpet, and Joe Oliver, the cornet king, used rubber cups and derby hats to mute his horn. Another one was Duke Ellington, who was a pianist that combined ragtime with Armstrong's improvisational style and mixed jazz with orchestral sounds with strings, brass, and woodwinds. Success of African American writers, artists, musicians, and thinkers during the Harlem Renaissance gave blacks throughout America a reason to hope life was improving. During this period, African prosperity increased in numbers in real estate and banking. In addition to this, achievements were made in legal victories regarding lawsuits filed by the NAACP against racial discrimination. The number of college students graduated in areas of medicine and law. The Harlem Renaissance was short-lived due to several factors. Following the Depression, speakeasies, dance halls, and theaters were only in business for the rich, and other businesses closed and conditions for Black America worsened. Jobs became scarcer, and there was discrimination in education and employment. Overcrowding became an issue along with the housing shortage and higher rent, which in turn became poor black slum. Men of the household had to go elsewhere for jobs, so the breakdown of the family became rampant. The artistic decline was gradual, caused by loss of donors and the deaths of Renaissance figures. Even though the Harlem Renaissance changed African American life and the American culture itself, the end of the movement depended on white money, opinion, and audiences to sustain itself. The only area that still lives on is the music that came from the Harlem Renaissance.